All right, hello there, people of the internet. This is Dialogues with Jagero, and today we are starting something really, really special. And it is a series. The first time we're doing a series here at Dialogues with Jagero, and it is with none other than Mr. Maurice Matheka. Mr. Maurice Matheka, how are you doing?
I'm good.
You're good?
Why you call me so officially? I don't know.
There is a way you... So we have agreed to do a series called The Pleasure Principle.
We have.
Yeah. And I think this is going to get deeper into your knowledge. The man with the knowledge and the experience. Is the experience...
What do you want to ask?
We are going to be talking of the first episode that we are going to be dealing with is called Defining Sexual Self-Acceptance. Yeah?
Yes.
So I would love you to give us an overview of the first part that we're going to do. It's going to get into what it means, the definition of overview of sexual self-acceptance, why it matters, the importance in personal well-being and relationships, common struggles that we have, recognizing common barriers of sexual self-acceptance. And then we can wrap it for episode 1 and then start on episode 2. So what do you understand by the word, sexual self-acceptance?
What I understand by is in every stage of life, especially as you get to decipher what you as a human being recognize as sexuality, I think it's mainly about the holdbacks in society. Because we have many. Some are based on a societal perception of what sexuality looks like, the religious guidelines as well. So there's a lot of pressure, hence the word acceptance. So I always feel sexual acceptance is about, as you go on in life, the different stages that you pass through, how are you accepting that usually wake up and you feel a certain way versus are you supposed to be feeling that way? Because there are people who usually ask me at certain times of the day, there's a way I feel very sexual. Is that normal? And basically what they're asking is they have probably heard so many things, so many taboos, so many negatives about sexuality. So they're wondering, is what I'm thinking about in the afternoon or in the morning, is it a decent thought? That's where the acceptance comes from. And I just have to tell them, yes, it is. It's like hunger. You're never guilty that you're hungry. So why are you guilty that you have a desire at a particular hour? Does it mean sexuality only is validated by an hour? So should we all start feeling sexual anytime from 7 p.m. or 6 p.m.? Who is the one who is giving us the guidelines? So that's why sexual acceptance comes into play. It's about people not knowing how to handle what they're feeling in different stages of their life in regards to sexuality.
So then perhaps we could look at how it all starts. Sex.
Yes.
As a sexologist, how does it start when you're young? For example, you can give an example of a young person, a teenage girl,
yes,
and a teenage boy.
Yes.
How does it start to manifest?
It starts to manifest with the fact that at some point we start having desires based on hormonal processes in our body. Hence why sometimes if you're lucky enough to be young, and you have somebody who is able to tell you that by the time you're about 13, 14, 15, I was told that. I was told there's a certain age where you'll start looking at girls differently. And the reason why I was told that is because when I was a little boy, I didn't like girls playing with my toys. So I was very anti-girls. Yeah. Versus by the time I was about 13, 14, 15, I started looking girls differently. I started being lured by them. So it was good that I was in a place where I was told that these things would happen. But now look at young people who do not have that advantage. And then their disadvantage is they have this indoctrinated information that sexuality is bad. Thinking about it, practicing it is bad. And in our early ages, sex is really demonized, unless you have other influences that tell you otherwise. So you find people are very conflicted. By the time they get into a certain stage, they're being told boys are bad. Stay away from girls because I don't want you to bring a pregnant girl to my home. So, and in an ideal world, we would start training young people on how to have play dates from the age of 8, where let's say I have a daughter and you have a son, and they go to the same school and they've made friends. So if my daughter comes and says, you know what, Daddy, there's a little boy, and clearly at some point I get to know the dad, we can take our kids for like a play date without sexualizing the play date. And that's how by the time they're 13, 14, 15, starting from an earlier age, they're able to interact. Whereas today, if you look at, for example, Kenya, we have so many boarding schools which at some point made sense, but in my opinion, they don't make sense today, because in the same boarding schools where people are going to learn, people should be learning, but also learning how to interact with others. So you can't separate people for so many years and then at some point release them into the big wild world and expect them to have all the tools of how to relate. So sometimes even when I'm giving therapy to people, when I profile their life, I can tell that some of the relationship problems that they're having later in life started with the fact that they went to a boarding school. They were segregated from the opposite sex. And those are precious times in regards to how I also perceive a little girl. You see what I'm saying? The respect that little boys are supposed to have for a little girl and vice versa. Those should be nurtured very early, but we don't have those systems. So some of the problems stem from the fact that we're not starting. It's a program, if you ask me. It's a program of socializing people. The same way you have a very wild animal and you tame it and it becomes more friendly to humans. We should train our young on how to start relating early. So if it was up to me, I would scrap boarding schools.
What do you think is the underlying reason why? I don't know whether it is the government. I don't know whether it is I really can't place a finger on who decided that we are supposed to be boys' school, we are supposed to be girls' school.
Okay.
I don't know, yes.
From my research and just from a lot of general knowledge, there's a time boarding schools made sense because most of them were governed by a religious backing. And so you've got a lot of boarding schools that were Catholic driven, and kids there were taught by the sisters or mothers or priests. So there was a religious element to it, and that now allowed for the separation of boys and girls. That it may have worked back then, but today we live in a very different world with a lot of information, far more information. And I think what they were trying to achieve back then is not achievable now with the youth of today. You've got to change the equation. Because back then, yes, there were a lot of people who were churned out and today are law-abiding, well-doing in their careers. But I find after interviewing quite a lot of young people, they have a lot of knowledge today compared to when we were their age. And I feel that boarding schools today are not making sense at all.
What exactly does it do for somebody? For example, I know there are people that were taken to boarding school at the young age of 9.
Yeah,
and
even earlier.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
There is a school in our village called Nyabondo Boys.
Right.
Where you can take kids even at the age of 6.
Yeah.
And I can imagine that, and then there is Nyabondo Boys primary school,
yeah,
and then there is Nyabondo Boys secondary school. So that means that a child or a young boy going to school at 6 years is only allowed and exposed to boys until they sit their KCPE.
Correct.
And then they go back home and after a short while, they are bundled into a car and taken to a boarding school.
Yeah.
The secondary boarding school, and then they stay there for 4 years. The same, I think, would happen to, let's say, another girls' school. So these days they have got lots of them. Some even go to tertiary level, to the university level.
Yeah.
So what, in your experience and in your research, what does it do to somebody when you're exposed so much to your own gender and with very little interaction to the other gender?
Well, it's as simple as I'm not going to know girls if I'm getting to, mingle with them when I'm 19, when I'm 20. Because by then I'm also set in my ways. I've been interacting with so many boys that I have, if I may use the word, I have a rough approach on how I relate to people. So guess what's going to happen when I'm talking to women? I'm going to deal with them as if I'm dealing with men. I don't know how to deal with women. I'm getting to meet women at 19, and by then I have my own perceptions of what I think or how I think women should be treated. Whereas if I was younger, I would have learned things like, like when guys used to say that you have these play dates where you have like teacups that don't even have tea, then you start pretending you're having tea, and then the little boy is being taught how to serve the little girl. I never went through that. So I'm being released into the big world when I'm 19, when I'm 20, and a gesture that I would have known if I'd been taught earlier that maybe to a lot of people is normal is not normal to me. As simple as I'm seeing a girl struggling with a bag, but I just ignore it. Why? Because it's not hit me that I could assist her. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But I would have learned that if there was a program to teach me much earlier. And sometimes it's like even in the workplace, you find a lot of people want to employ younger people that they can groom into the culture of that company. So I've not been groomed how to interact with the opposite sex. Sometimes it's a bit late to groom somebody who is in their 20s. They're already set in their ways. So you're teaching them something, but it doesn't mean that it will add value to their life. But if you train them at an early age, then you're nurturing a brain, a perception of, she is the opposite sex. There is a way I should be treating her. So I think those are the failings of today's society.
And then and so when they come out here and start, what are some of the, for example, so let's get into the difference between, let's say, a 16-year-old girl and a 16-year-old boy.
Yeah.
You've said that when he wants to now interact with the girls, he doesn't know. He has a perception of who the girl is. While if he was, growing with this person from, let's say, the age of 10, then he would have figured out who this kind of person is.
He'd know how to treat her. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yes.
It's like, for example, take a guy who has only lived in the village, and he comes to Nairobi, and he meets a woman who, from the time she was young, knows that a man should take her out for films, should take her out for dinner. And this has nothing to do with entitlement. It's just a thing that men like doing for women, and women like it as well. He's just pampering a woman. When he meets that woman and she asks him, how come you don't take me to the movies? He can easily say, well, I've downloaded the movie so we can watch it in the house. It's even cheaper. So why you want us to actually, use transport to go to the film, pay some premium to watch the film, and then pay some expensive popcorn to watch the film, when we could just easily do that on our plasma TV at home? He's not understanding the gesture and the fun of being outside and the fun of being, he won't get that. The same way a woman would be like, my man is not romantic. Her version of romantic is, take me out to not a nyama choma place, but a nice dinner in a nice restaurant. I want to have like a 3-5 course meal. Whereas this guy If you tell him dinner, he'll take you to Kamaki's, where there's a lot of meat. You can't finish that meat. And it's far cheaper than the 3 and 5 course meal. Now, does it mean that this guy is less romantic? No. It just means that he wasn't groomed to understand why a candle-lit dinner makes sense for some people. So this 19-year-old has no idea that he's looking at a girl that her bag or her books have fallen out of her bag. It's not instinctual for him to run over and just help her with her bag or just pick a book. Do you see what I'm saying? It's not the romanticized version. It's just a decent thing to do. Is he less decent? No, he wasn't trained to do that. Do you see my problem? And the thing is, people are then now coming to congregate and meet in the city. And in the city, there's certain expectations. So, Jagara, you're the failure because you grew up in Kisumu, but you're not a failure. You are just not bred to understand what the needs of a woman may be in Nairobi. The same way...
Or the perceived needs of a woman.
There you go. The same way I can go to Kisumu and meet a woman who tells me, Maurice, I love washing your clothes. And I'm thinking, no. You're not my house help. That's not your job. And she says, no. Don't take that away from me. If you take that away from me, then I lose value in your life. I'm thinking, no, but that's not the value. Now look at us having an argument when I'm telling her, I don't need you to wash my clothes. But for her, if she's not washing my clothes, she's not feminine enough. She's not woman enough. Do you see what I'm saying? Whereas there's a woman in Nairobi who, you want me to wash your what? I didn't grow up washing my own clothes. I've never washed a man's clothes, so why would I wash yours? Is she wrong? No, that's the way she was groomed. The same way the Kisumu woman was groomed in a certain way. So when the 19-year-old has not been groomed to understand the girl by the, at the age of 8 or 10, when he's 19 and he's trying to have a relationship with the woman who has been exposed to other ways of treating her, I don't see them having a very good future. I don't. There'll always be conflicts because he's thinking, what you're demanding is entitlement. Yet, it's not entitlement. That's what she's used to. Do you see what I'm saying? If you live in a family where you have English breakfast, and then one day you meet somebody who tells you, no more English breakfast. I want to ugali and some meat in the morning. You're like, whoa. I've never done that. You see? So it's down to how you groom people. I'm going to
walk if I eat ugali in the morning.
You see, yet there are men who can only eat ugali and meat. I know them. Their women have to wake up at 5 to make a fresh meal, and it's nyama and ugali. Now, are you going to say that guy is wrong? No, it's how he's groomed. I then cannot complain that I hooked up with this person because I should have seen that there is a mismatch in how we were groomed and how we perceive things.
That raises another question or another concern.
Right.
About the people that are groomed in a certain way.
Okay.
Because I feel like as human beings, you need to be aware that in this world, I'm going to meet people that were not all born in Nairobi. I'm going to meet people that were not all born in the village. If you're a villager, then you should also understand that you must have an expectation that I'm going to meet people that were brought up in the city. And if somebody was brought up in the city, how different are they from me? If I was born in the city and there is somebody who was born in the village, I should be aware that at some point I might be able to date people that were born in the village. And what is it that the villagers know about love? And so when I start dating you, I already know that this person, like I was born in the village, so much wasn't happening there in terms of relationship. There are no flowers. First of all, there is no rain there. So you don't expect flowers.
Exactly.
There are no restaurants. All there are outlets that sell mandazi. Yes. That is full of dust. Mm-hmm. That's all is there, and people and shops.
But the dust is good for your immune system, so
yeah. I've always thought so, but still. So anyway, so do you think that somebody should be aware of what to expect in the real world, so that we don't have this friction of somebody expecting this from me, and yet they don't know that I don't know about those things.
I think it would be a bit unrealistic to say that all of us should know, because it would mean that the person in the village had a curriculum that taught him about the guy in the city.
Yes.
He comes to the city and then he gets what we call culture shock, because there was no curriculum to tell him city people behave in a certain way. City people may be more arrogant or have less time for you. Whereas in the village, you can stop somebody and you ask for directions.
Yes.
And 20 people want to help you.
Yes.
In the city, you stop one person for directions and they look at you like, how dare you stop me when I was concentrating on my day?
Yes.
So you see the difference. We don't have curriculums that are teaching us about people from different areas. Like it's absurd. It's like, for example, when I've visited different countries in Europe, yes, until I visited that country, I didn't know what to expect. I may have watched plenty of movies that featured the country, but that does not equate to what I'm physically experiencing. So I can't go to China and see them eating snakes and rats and start judging them.
Yes.
Do you see what I'm saying?
That's exactly what I was saying.
Exactly.
But you should have, for example, before you went to China,
yes,
you should have known that some people around the world eat snakes. That's,
yes,
that's what I'm asking.
Yes. And I ate the snake and I realized, wow, it's actually meat. It's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I would eat it again. I've eaten quite a number of things that people wouldn't eat. But the thing is, you have to go there and experience it. So whether you're a city boy, city girl, you're from the village, what we should do is we should have programs that teach people that everywhere you go around the world, even if it's just a distance of 50 miles, you will find a different culture. You will find a difference in how people behave. And you have to acclimatize to it. Do you see what I'm saying? I can't go to the UK and complain that people there may not be as friendly as parts of Kenya. I can't do that. Or vice versa. I can't. I must integrate myself there and find people who are of my tribe. And people of my tribe are basically people who we think alike. We're like-minded. That's what you do. And like-minded people, the pockets are everywhere on this planet. So if you're good at channeling that energy, then you're able to attract people that are like-minded.
So we are going to be talking about personal well-being.
Yes.
And relationships.
Okay.
Yes. What I was thinking about when I was writing this, I was thinking about basically how to take care of your sexuality, whether it is the real organ or just generally as a person.
The real organ.
Yeah, whether it is the penis, whether it is the vulva, whatever it is,
right,
the well-being of your sexuality.
Right.
And also what was in my head was how do you start relating the things that happen to you as a person, because we have people that are still virgins at 20, 25, 20,
even 30, even
yes,
40. I've met them.
Yeah. So how do you start taking care of when these things are happening to you? How do you start now dealing with them? For example, when we started talking, we talked about if you're getting horny in the morning.
Yes.
Because look, I am a Christian, and I was brought up in a very sort of strict kind of Christianity, where a lot of things were basically sin. So you couldn't walk in shorts. That was sinful. You couldn't walk with a stick. That was sinful. You couldn't.
A stick?
Yes. You can't masturbate. That is sinful. You can't look at a woman's ass. That is sinful. You can't think about having sex with women. That is sinful. You wake up and you have wetted your bed as a young boy, and you want to kill yourself because you think you've done the biggest sin.
When you say wet, like...
See, wet dreams.
Oh, right, okay.
Wet dreams.
Yeah.
Then it is just, as a young man growing up, I didn't know what was going on in my life. My mother wasn't talking about sex. My father wasn't talking about sex. My teachers were busy caning people that were involved in sexual escapades. So how do you get to accept who you are as a person, and what is the processes that are the healthy processes that are going on in your being as a person? Yeah.
Okay. I'd have one question based on that terrifying list that you just came up with. My first question would be, because most of these rules, or rather all of them, are based on a religious perspective, I believe that whatever religion you're in, the God that you praise or follow, is the God that people, or rather Christians or whatever religion you're from, is the God that people say created man, correct? So if you wake up with an erection, or if you wake up and find you've had a wet dream, or if you are walking on the street and you happen to see a woman and then you happen to glance at her bodily attribute like the bottom you just mentioned, isn't the God that you said created you then created you with a default? Shouldn't that be the question?
Now as a grown-up, I see it that way.
Yeah.
What happens is that when you're a child, or you're just growing up, and you're being told things left, right, and center, it is very confusing.
Okay.
It's very, very confusing. You don't know what is true, because there are so many things that I've started, asking about, even in my spiritual walk.
Yeah.
The things that, like, for example, the tithe. I mean, I have started questioning those things, because the tithe, they said that bring the riches into my Father's house, so that widows, so that people who are not able can get a life out of them.
Right.
But these days, churches are locked. You can't even go there and pray there during the day.
No, you can't.
You can't. They are locked. Those days, there were no doors in churches. You could just go there, and even if you were...
it was a place of worship for everyone. It was,
you could go there and actually seek refuge and be there for days.
Correct.
And nobody will chase you.
It was like a sanctuary.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the guys that are cooking there will bring you food.
Yes.
That is not something that can happen at my church right now.
Yeah.
And so when somebody is telling me that I have to give them 10%, then I'm asking, what is this 10% going to be doing? Well, there could be a few things that they're doing with it, but I don't think it is what was there. They're telling me not to eat things that has got hooves, or whatever it does not have hooves. So anyway, I want you to, what is your opinion? What if somebody came to you, because I know that you are a relationship, you're a therapist of sorts, yeah? What do you tell a young person that is going through these kind of things? Because the truth is, their parents might not be talking to them about these things. Yes.
Okay. Well, it becomes a bit difficult to answer that question based on, if it's a young person, they've probably been brought to me by somebody. Because even if they contact me directly, depending on their age, if they're not of an age where I can deal with them directly, then I'll need permission from their parents. So there comes another hurdle, because their parents are not willing to accord their child the information that I would like to share with their child, because it goes against what they have taught their child.
Yes.
So that becomes a problem. I think sometimes it's down to have some parents change their minds based on how they perceive things over time. But at the end of the day, I think some of these things we're going to unlearn, or realize that maybe there are things we need to poke holes in when we're a bit older. I think there's a process that we're not going to control unless it's a process that part of an education system. Like, I don't have the right to go and tell parents what information they should be giving their children. I just don't have that right. However, if it's part of a curriculum, then it may change in the future. But right now, it's down to your poking holes on things that you were told earlier on. And we can't control that environment. We just can't. The same way there are certain traditional cultures to do with young girls, and I'm talking about girls who are not of the legal age, which legal age is based on what your law states. And in Kenya, for example, is 18. But you find there are cultures in Kenya and around the world where girls who are far younger than that are married off or are indulging in the sexual act. And you find even though those countries have laws, that law will be practiced within Nairobi environments, but the minute you go to the village, even the village politicians and elders know that, even though it is our law on the land as Kenya, in our region, we don't apply it. And it's not questioned, because they may tell you that this practice has been there longer than the laws that came to govern the land. Do you see what I'm saying? So at the end of the day, you'll find, depending on where you are, there's going to be a conflict in cultures, beliefs, practices. Sometimes it's just out of your control.
There are parents who are saying,
yes,
I suffered through this and I don't want my kid to suffer through this. I am very open to the world knowledge.
Right.
And I want my child to know as much as possible about their sexuality.
Okay.
When they are still of good age, of acceptable age.
Yeah.
This child is allowed to come to you and you talk to them about their lives. Let's take, for example, it's a 16-year-old boy.
Yes.
And
who I have spoken to in the past.
Yes.
With the permission of the parent.
Yes. So how do you start molding and trying to help this boy through these teenage years before they become a full adult and start, managing their lives on their own?
I think the first thing that we need to do for our audience is define what sexual education looks like.
Yes, for sure.
People sexualize sexual education. When I'm talking to a 16-year-old, you'll find that most of the things we're sharing are not what people would deem sexual, but they'll sexualize it because we've used the word sexual education or sex education. And all it is somebody like me profiling where the kid has come from, their experiences, and why I am here. What is the core reason why your parent has called me? Once I can profile that, it's my job then to let the child know that these are the processes of your body. You're going to start feeling certain things, and this is the best way to channel that energy. I have not mentioned any naked people having sex, none of that. I am just teaching this person why they're thinking or why they're struggling based on whatever their struggle is at the time, so that by the time we have 1-2 sessions, whatever it takes, you start to groom them to think differently. Because sometimes these are just holdbacks. Sometimes these are just things that you need to unlearn so that you can stop feeling the pressure. A simple thing as it's very sad when sometimes we are dealing with the problem, yet the national solution was to make sure the problem never happens again. It is very disheartening to go and meet a young boy who tells you that, again, the boarding schools I was talking about, in boarding schools, they've been experiencing things that they would never want anyone else to experience. And the simple fact is they've been sexually assaulted by multiple boys. And the only reason the parents got to know this is because they saw a change in behavior of the boy. Now, people will argue, but that's a one-off case. No, it's not a one-off case. You'll find a lot of men today who are grown. If they were to tell you their horror stories in boarding school, you'd not like it. They'll even tell you that's why I have certain phobias, or that's why I don't subscribe to certain things that we're trying to be taught today. Because my experiences in school were not as good, but I was told never to show that emotion. So it's important that we have systems that teach people early in life that there's there are paths. There's A, B, and C. If A is what works, why do we need B and C? People say we need options, but sometimes if A is working and A has a higher percentage of grooming a better behaved society with less dysfunctionality in regards to your experiences, why not go for A? And you see, the thing is, these things are out of our control because they're not seen. They're very hush hush. Do you see what I'm saying? It's like the documentary to do with the Catholic Church and what priests around the world did to so many men. And it's dreadful to see a grown man crying because he's going back to when he was a young boy and somebody he looked up to did things to them that they shouldn't have. Now, we should have things that would have deterred that. And some of those things are simple as this. You are not going to remove sexual urges from a human body, regardless of how you sugarcoat that body. If I wear a police uniform, it doesn't mean I'm not going to get horny. If I become a pilot, it doesn't mean I'm going to get horny. If I become a plumber, it doesn't mean I'm not going to get horny. That's just what I do for a living. It is a specification of maybe my skill set, but it still does not change that the human body goes through certain urges. Why? Because we, first and foremost, are procreational beings. When you have a farm, yes, I'm going to mention something I'm sure that's going to make you smile. If you have a tilapia farm and you've got a hatchery that's hatching all these eggs for tilapia, you're doing that to make money. But my point is this. The hatchery works because tilapia do what? They multiply, correct? Humans do the same, but we do that based on an instinctual and engraved urge that's sexual. Now imagine that urge is demonized, yet it is our programming. It's who we are. Isn't that weird?
Listening to you as a parent, I have something going on in my head.
Right.
And it's this. I want to know a little bit of an overview of what Matheka is going to discuss with my boy. You get?
Yes.
What would that be? Hypothetically, a boy comes to you. What are some of the? You said that you're going to go through. There is a word you used that I now forget.
Profile.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're going to profile.
Okay.
Is there an overview of how that profiling works?
I'm going to profile. You're the parent. You've called me.
Yes.
And you've told me that I think there's something wrong with my boy. It may have something to do with girls. It may have something to do with his school. I don't know. He's not opening up. So the first thing is, I need to ask you, if I'm going to profile your son or your child, what if your child tells me, I don't want you to tell my parents what I'm going to tell you? Should I listen to your child or should I listen to you? I'll give you an example. There's a time I went to profile a young boy, and the parent told me in front of the boy that whatever you guys discuss, you have to tell me. Otherwise, I don't see why you're here. It made sense because I'm there to evaluate what the issue is, because the parent wants to know what the issue is so we can improve moving forward. So if I'm just going to share a conversation with their child and then walk off, I've not helped anyone. I've gone with the information. Unless now I indicate that, you know what, we'll need at least 3-4 sessions to solve this, but we can't share with you. Most parents will be like, that's absolute nonsense. I need to be in the loop. So it's not up to me. It's up to, does the child want to share with me? And then later I can have a session with the parents. Most will say, yeah, out of the respect or the fear, whatever it is, but they'll say yes. So it's not up to me. I can't tell a parent that I'm not going to give that information. But I need their kid to be in the loop that I will share. I don't want the kid to open up to me and then look like I stabbed them in the back. I don't want to add to their problems. I'm there to help. So that's how I would handle it.
My question is not answered though.
It is.
I was thinking about, for example, how do you profile? What are some of the
it starts
things, yes.
It starts gently. It starts with me asking them whether they're ready to talk. Because guess what? I can't force them to talk. I may have traveled hours to get to where they are, but if they're not ready to talk, I have to come back. It's as simple as that. Some parent will try and force the child. Talk to him. You need to respect him. He's come from so far. Then I have to tell them, no, this is not how this works. We are not going to be part of the problem.
Yeah.
We're going to be part of the solution. So when your child is ready to talk, then I will come and ask them a sequence of questions. And it just starts with, if you're ready, can you tell me what's troubling you? They know what's troubling them. So they won't take you round. And, once they tell you what's troubling them, you now have to evaluate whether they need further help or I can manage their problem. Because it might be a child who needs to speak to a certain specialist, and maybe I don't have that skill set. And you only know that when you're professional enough to know, I don't know everything. Do you see what I'm saying? I'm not a psychiatrist. Probably the child, based on the trauma that they have experienced, I'll need to refer them to a psychiatrist. But I'll only know that once I profile what the problem is. Because some problems, if they're in my periphery, I can deal with them. If they're not, then you just refer them to somebody else who is better equipped to deal with that problem.
How does your set of skills different from the others? Like, for example, I know that there are people who call themselves trauma coaches. There are people who call themselves relationship coach.
Okay, for example, if a child tells you that they have thought of committing suicide, that's not something that I am trained to handle. And it would be false for me to say, based on experience, I think I can handle. If you have to think, you can't handle. There's somebody who went to school to deal with this problem, so you then refer to that person. For example, there's a reason why we have cardiologists. There's a reason why we have guys who are good with dentistry, or there's a guy who specializes in the pancreas. So you won't find just a general doctor saying, oh, no, I can deal with all the organs on your body. No, he won't do that. Not if he's professional. He'll refer you to the person who can deal with that specific problem. So, and that is why the profiling comes in. Do you see what I'm saying? It's like, for example, when I go to a home and I'm talking to adults and I hear somebody has been cutting themselves with a knife, I cannot deal with the cutting business. That's not what I was trained to do. I need to refer them to somebody who has specific training in mental health. I may have experience in it, but I may not be able to profile and miss out on something which could eventually cause them to be triggered to kill themselves. Sort of failed. So you refer them to somebody who's better equipped.
Do you know some of the red flags, some of the things that you should be able to see in a child?
Right.
A behavior that would tell a parent that surely this girl, this boy, this child
Yes.
needs help and I'm not able to provide it? Do you know some of the things that are...
One is seclusion. If you know your child does not seclude themselves, or if you know at the dining table, they may not be, the life of the party all the time, but they light up in a certain way. They'll share. In school we did this, or Betty or David said this, and they crack you up. If you see a few dinners or a few lunches have passed and, they seem less in the family vibe, the energy is all wrong, those are signs. Sometimes we like to say things like, maybe they're feeling a bit sick. Yet you know them so well that your own instincts are telling you, but you're thinking, nah, I think I'm overthinking. You're not overthinking. Your instincts are always right. You know your child. You know how your child smiles. You know how they react to things. Or another thing is, if they have panic attacks. If you're suddenly watching a movie and there's a little bang and they start like nudging over, like you're thinking, whoa, that's a panic attack. Like you never have that. Like we've watched movies that were far more, like action-wise, and you never flinched, but now you are. So what it is, those are the things that you can uniquely look at. But you see, the thing is, sometimes if you don't have a trained eye, you won't know these things. And then again, because you're a parent, you probably tell yourself, I'm overthinking. And then you'll just brush it off. But they are key. The key thing here is, if your instincts are telling you something, then there has to be something. There just has to be something. It's like when you go to a home and somebody tells you that, or a little girl tells you that her cousin who comes over for the last 6 years has been doing things to her. To be honest, out of that 6 years, probably for 4 years, the parents suspected something, but it's the cousin. And my child is 6 and the cousin is 6 or 7. They're like age mates and they're cousins, for heaven's sake. Maybe it's me who's just worried for nothing, yet there was something happening. Or, uncle tells me to do something and he's been doing certain things. I mean, I've met women who have come to me and sometimes they have a backstory. Their backstory is from the age of 4 till I was about 14, I was sexually molested. And that's now affecting her sexuality as a grown-up, and it would.
And that is where I was going, actually. How do things that happen in our childhood affect us when we are grown?
It's trauma that needs to be resolved, because it never goes away. In her mind, she's always thinking, men are bad people. I'm talking from an experience I've had. Men are bad people. I have a husband, but I don't even trust him. I actually don't even trust my own son. Sometimes when my son walks into my bedroom, I flinch. I get scared. I know he's not here to hurt me, but the sight of a man, and then he's suddenly in the bedroom. What happens in bedrooms? You see? So for her, she has so many triggers. She needs to see somebody who can help her with that, because it's not going away. It's
not going away.
It's not going away until she has somebody who knows how to balance it out for her. And there are professionals who can do that for you.
I think common struggles on how recognizing common barriers to self-acceptance. Yeah. What are some of the barriers? I think one of the things we talked about was religion.
Yes.
It's a very big barrier.
It's a major barrier. The other barrier is lack of information.
Yeah. Can you tell us more about that?
I've never seen my parents kiss, is one. I've never seen my father hold my mum's hand, but he did so once when we were at a funeral. So now you understand that's more of a comfort thing, but I've never seen them show signs of love. So I'm also struggling on, is it acceptable to hold somebody's hand? When should I kiss somebody? Is kissing even allowed? And if we're kissing, even if it's my wife, should we do it indoors? These are the questions that people ask. And that's why you find sometimes when you're watching a movie, people are far more exposed today, but there's a time when a lot of the stuff that we see in movies, people used to say, you see how Muzungus behave. Like he just got up and kissed his wife. That is so wrong. And I'm thinking it's a kiss, for heaven's sake. Why? Because anything sexual has been demonized. But I would not be wrong by stating even today in many Kenyan marriages, with what you'd call the modern life, the modern, concrete life and picket fence and nice car, nice home, and they've made the investments and stuff like that. They still, the culture of, for example, you're not going to believe this, but there are women in Kenya and around the world who have never seen their husband's penis. I'll give you one example. She's never seen the husband's penis, and they've been together for almost 2 decades now. And the reason being is their room is usually dark, and then he goes to the bathroom before sex. He has a boxer on. He comes into the duvet, removes his boxer in the duvet. He then places his boxer behind his head. I'm assuming somewhere on the headrest or on the bed, whatever. And then he does his deed. He gets on top of her. Once he's done, he reaches for the boxer. He puts it back on. So she just sees a silhouette of him walking into the bathroom when he switches on. So she's never known anything than that. She's felt it, but she's never seen it. Explain that. That's culture. Somewhere in that guy's mind, he would probably tell you that it would be an insult for me to come undressed towards my wife. I need to undress in a certain cultural way. I'm even struggling to describe it because it's nonsensical, but that's his attitude. The same way I've met men who have told me I can never nibble on my wife's nipple because ever since she gave birth, I have an attitude that her breasts belong to our children. And then I need to ask the guy, how old is your youngest child? Then he says something like 16. And I'm thinking, please tell me your 16-year-old is not still suckling. I know the answer. I'm just being sarcastic. So basically what I'm telling him is, don't you think you need to snap out of your thought process? There's nothing wrong with enjoying your wife. And after all, aren't religious people told once you're married, you have a license to kill? Well, not literally, like James Bond. You have a license to do whatever you want. It's your husband. It's your wife. Explore. Yet the opposite happens. People become more traditional. Men struggle to kiss their wives. There are people who tell me I can never kiss my wife in public. That would be disrespectful. Now, I've never seen a disrespectful kiss. Not unless you're just bad at it. But it's still not disrespectful. So there's a lot of cultural and misconceptions and also bad teachings from the beginning about how you should express yourself towards your partner. That just needs to be unlearned.
Okay. That is our first episode, self-acceptance. I thought it was going to be a very short one. It has become a very long one.
I don't think we've ever had any short episode.
Say that again?
I don't think we've had a short episode.
we never do have. So, people of the internet, this was Dialogues with Jekero with Mr. Maurice Matheka. You know, the first episode, that is self-acceptance. We are going to go into episode 2. And we are asking you that if you love this series, we would ask you that you comment, you share, and hit on that notification bell on YouTube so that when we have another one coming up, you will be notified by YouTube. And, you know, follow us on other socials, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, and X. Or Twitter, as we know it. Thank you very much, and until another episode, bye for now.